Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today we got to look at, for a lot of people, what is the endpoint of the criminal justice system. Of course, we're talking about state prisons, which is where most of the people convicted of felonies are actually sent, because most crimes are local, managed at the state level and whatnot. And we're going to talk about what is going on in New York State, where a bunch of the different prison guards are on strike. And by the way, the strike is technically an illegal strike because they're considered critical workers due to the fact that they're completely understaffed, and in addition to that, they are also being compelled to work more and more overtime in more and more dangerous prisons, because if they don't have the personnel to actually manage these violent populations, that is putting them at risk, and we're seeing the results of that time and time again. And I just want to emphasize for everybody out there in the audience that there is going to be violent footage throughout the course of this video that I cannot show you. It is in some of the local news segments that I'm highlighting, but if you go to the link in the description of this video, under where it says sources, you can see these videos. I'll do my best to describe it to you, but what happens is that this important story will be suppressed by the YouTube gods due to the fact that I am showing you what is actually going down in the prisons. So this is the best way for me to get this message out to as many people as possible, because make no mistake about it, these prison guards are suffering. They're out in the cold striking for better pay, for more people to be hired, and it's really incredibly important and crucial for us to make sure that the people who manage those who offend in our society, who destroy our society, are treated with the care and love and support that they need. And now, before we get into this, I want to say thank you to everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
The unauthorized strikes have caused lockdowns at facilities statewide, with officers saying conditions are simply unsafe right now. Governor Hochul is threatening action for the strikes that she says are illegal. We have team coverage for you tonight as tensions inside those prison walls reach a boiling point.
So like I said in the open of this particular video, the strikes that you're currently seeing are technically illegal because prison guards are critical workers in the government. And right now, Governor Kathy Hochul, who by the way is trying to micromanage Eric Adams because he supposedly has this quid pro quo with the evil orange man, is actually sending in the National Guard in order to tamp down the craziness in these prisons, because even though it is technically illegal, these prisoners have walked off the line.
You know, these freezing temps isn't stopping these folks here behind me from taking a stand. At the height of this strike outside of Coxsackie Correctional Facility, there were more than 100 corrections officers out here, just one of more than 24 strikes happening outside of correctional facilities across the state. And while none of the corrections officers wanted to be interviewed on camera, they did want to show me a little bit about the dangers they face while at work.
Now look, I have a lot of criticisms for public sector unions. Oftentimes they're using our tax dollars in order to put politicians in power in order to benefit them. They end up setting this stuff up in such a way that they do off-year elections. And there's a bunch of other issues that have come up in various places across the country, like the fact that Brandon Johnson is a member of the Chicago Teachers Union who is now trying to borrow money at high interest in order to pay them off so that when he's done being mayor, he can reap the benefits of those contracts. But that being said, the prison guards, the people who manage the dredges of our society, they need protections. They need to have a voice. And in this particular case, this is the exception to the rule. I think it is very important to listen to their representatives, to hear them out, because again, they're managing people that we don't want in our society, that we don't want to manage. They're risking their lives, and they're doing that because incapacitation is the most effective strategy in reducing crime in the real world, in the normal world, in our world that we inhabit in our day-to-day lives. So I am right there with these guys that they need more staffing. They need the support to be able to defend themselves against these prisoners, because when you look at these riot footages and all this other stuff, you realize they are wholly inadequate in terms of numbers to the dangers that they face.
This surveillance footage showing the moments leading up to a 2022 prison riot at Great Meadow Correctional Facility. In the footage, an inmate attacks an officer before chaos ensues. The riot sent 5 officers to the hospital.
So look, obviously I had to freeze frame the video again as per the reasons I laid out in the beginning of this video. Full clip linked in the description of this if you want to check it out. But what ended up happening right here is that this individual ended up targeting this correction officer. However, this was the start of a planned attack that ultimately ultimately ended up leading to a riot. And as you can see, the number of criminals just completely outnumber correction officers, which by the way is completely normal, but you need to understand that these correction officers are short-staffed as compared to previous years because the George Floyd effect, the Black Lives Matter effect, and all of that ended up impacting them as well. And in addition to that, these correction officers are also overworked, and when you're overworked, you can catch yourself slipping, and when you slip in front of these criminal types, guess what? You end up in a situation where multiple officers are getting injured. Now, I'll also point out that there's a total lack of diversity in the criminal group that is attacking these specific guards, and in addition to that, there's a lot of small or overweight women, and I'm just being 100% honest. I know some of you ladies do a good job, so just relax, that are in the fray, and they seem to be spraying pepper spray on the periphery of this fight rather than engaging in the fight. And to be clear, I'm fine with women using force multipliers. I'm fine with corrections officers using force multipliers because the chances are you don't have the time to deal with these people in a one-on-one karate battle that spend all day working out. But you're seeing the results of them trying to recruit a bunch of different women. There appears to be a lot of them, and maybe this particular position of you being on the ground in the prison yard isn't the best possible place for them. I'm sorry, but these guys look like they're over 6 feet tall. They spend all day working out, and a 5'4" woman, even if she's a larger woman in terms of weight with the pepper spray can, does not seem like an effective deterrent against these criminals. But we see another instance that breaks out, and this is violence between the inmates, and we also see a similar pattern where the guards don't really have any kind of way to deal with this.
This footage here showing a glimpse of the struggles corrections officers say they face daily. This scene from Greenhaven Correctional Facility, an inmate stabbing another, officers struggling to gain control of the situation. Officers say staff shortages are at crisis level.
So again, like I said, I can't show you the footage of these particular instances because they're violent, because YouTube will ding me, but that individual who was walking across the screen at the beginning of the frame ended up attacking an individual that was against the wall. Then, of course, a fight broke out, and you can see one of the guards try to intervene with the pepper spray while two guards are hanging back, and the reason they're hanging back is that if you look at the numbers of people in here, if this was a scenario like the previous one that we saw where all of these people were going to get involved, you have to have people being ready in order to engage with the people that have yet to enter the fray, because they very well might enter the fray. And of course, I will also point out in this particular video, and again, I'm not throwing shade, I'm just pointing out what I see, the female guard appears to have pepper sprayed herself. There's pepper spray being sprayed everywhere, and she walks into the pepper spray. Now, to be clear, again, I'm not an ignoramus. I know that the reason why the New York State Troopers actually make all of the people who become state troopers get pepper sprayed is because oftentimes it ends up aerosolizing and getting in the face of the sprayer, so they want them to be, adjusted to it. But for whatever reason, the two male guards that are there are not holding their own eyes in this video, and this female guard appears to have walked into the fray,
forcing them into grueling mandatory overtime shifts while violence among inmates is escalating. They all tell me they're afraid to speak on camera, fearing retaliation. But retired officers with family members still on the job tell me it's worse than ever.
Now look, all joking aside about the violent instances that were being shown, these signs are absolutely heartbreaking. They're talking about how inmates are able to see their families more than they do. They're able to spend more time with them. And the fact of the matter is, this is due in large part to the fact that they're being forced to work overtime. And I understand why compelled overtime on certain occasions is absolutely needed. If you're short-staffed on a temporary basis, you need to actually, secure the prison. And that's part of the process of taking that job as a correction officer. But when it becomes the norm, when it becomes the standard, when every single correction officer is overworked because you're not hiring the adequate number of people, this becomes an absurdity. And I need you guys to understand that this is all in the context of the fact that the New York State budget is $250 billion. And without context, that might not sound like it makes a lot of sense to you. But the state of Florida, that now has a larger population than the state of New York, they have a budget of $116 billion. So with 2 million-ish more people in the state of Florida, the state of New York has double or more than double the budget in their state budget. And for whatever reason, they're not able to hire an adequate number of corrections officers in order to deal with the rising violence violence in the prisons.
Correction officers can't really speak, or they'd get in trouble from Albany. You know, it's sad that they can't tell their own stories. You know, I mean, we work behind the walls, but it's been a little while, and it's getting worse and worse and worse, and last week was the breaking point.
So what this former corrections officer ends up saying is that because this is an illegal strike, you can't actually have the corrections officers go before a camera in order to plead their case, because they can actually face serious consequences from Albany, from Governor Kathy Hochul. And Governor Kathy Hochul is threatening these people.
Meanwhile, the strikes continue to strain prison operations. Governor Hochul threatening to take action.
Notice how, of course, the MTA, the people who run the subways and the buses in the city of New York, they get unlimited chances. They're allowed to waste billions upon billions of dollars. They get new crazy taxes in order to fund their failing operation. But these people can't even speak up on behalf of themselves. They can't even go to camera and tell you an interview. And by the way, this is set off after a series of violent instances, one of which was the breaking point. And I completely understand and sympathize with these corrections officers. And by the way, I don't typically do this. This is not a normal thing for this channel, but if you are somebody who wants to do an interview and wants to do it anonymously, and you're a corrections officer that is currently on strike, you can contact me through my official email, which is SeanFitzgerald@actualjusticewarrior.com, and we can see if we can do something, if we can help get your message out there, because again, these are the people behind the lines. These are the people that incapacitate the criminals that we don't want in our society, because they've broken the rules, they've broken the norms, and they're dangerous, ongoing, violent threats to our society. We should treat them with the respect and care that they deserve. We should give them the adequate numbers in order for them to be as safe as possible, because even though it's a government job with pension and benefits and all of that, it has high risk. Unlike a police officer who may be dealing with a criminal, may be dealing with a victim, they're interacting with criminal after criminal after criminal all day, every day for a living, and they're doing it for us.
The shifts normally is an 8-hour shift. Now they're into the sense where they're getting stuck. They're working here 16 hours, and then the jail's saying, well, we're short, so now you got to work another 8 hours. So now you're working 24 hours. How can you do that?
Officers are calling for better working conditions, like the end of 24-hour shifts or the HALT Act, which limits solitary confinement in New York State. The Department of Corrections responding, saying legislation can't be changed overnight and that they're doing everything they can to recruit and retain staff.
Look, again, I understand once in a while that you need to press somebody in order to work 16 hours. And like I said earlier on, that's a part of the job. But 24-hour shifts becoming the norm? Are we kidding? We're not even saving money in doing so. You guys realize that these corrections officers get paid time and a half when they're forced to work this overtime. So it would just make more sense, even from a financial point of view, in order to hire the adequate number of corrections officers. And again, I know there's all this propaganda, abolish prisons, abolish police, all this other stupid nonsense. But the fact of the matter is, we need to emphasize how noble this profession can be, how risky this profession can be, and how much these people need the support from the community, so we can get people that are willing to work in this type of employment, willing to serve our state in order to do so. Because yeah, they need the proper amount of recruits. That's 100% true. But the fact of the matter is, this has to be spawned by a cultural change from our society that actually incentivizes people that are good, honest, hardworking people in going in that direction. And to me, being forced to not work a 24-hour shift, that seems like one of the most reasonable demands. That seems like something we can totally get on board with. And by the way, this is only applicable in the context of prisons, because police officers, we would not be compelling them to work this long by force of law. And the reason we wouldn't do that is because if it was cops, we would rather have them, in terms of our society and our politicians, not on the beat, because who cares about the citizens? But in this particular case, they're like, well, you know, sad day for you. Who cares about the corrections officer?
I am directing everyone involved in these unlawful strikes to stop these actions immediately. Legal action has already commenced to ensure compliance. Do what's right. Do your jobs.
With many officers on strike and refusing to report to work, the governor has deployed 3,500 New York National Guard troops. They're already on duty assisting correctional facilities across the state. The governor also brought in an independent mediator to help
end the prison strikes, which she considers illegal under state law.
So I'm going to say two things. First and foremost, obviously Governor Kathy Hochul has to tell these people to go back to work. Obviously that happens to be the case, but the fact of the matter is this woman has the audacity to throw out a $250+ billion budget proposal. Again, double the budget size of the state of Florida, who has more of a population than the state of New York, and there's not even adequate funds in order to make sure that you can recruit the proper amount of people in order to work in these prisons. It's an absolute mess. This woman has mismanaged everything throughout her tenure as governor, throughout her tenure as, by the way, the accidental governor of New York State, and she ought to be embarrassed. She ought to be ashamed. She ought to be booted from office. And again, this is a reason why I supported a law and order candidate, the Legend of Zeldin, who has now been taken from us New Yorkers who deserved him, who wanted him, who almost pushed him to the point where he could beat Governor Kathy Hochul, and now he's doing his good work in the EPA. And we're stuck with this absolute idiot, this absolute doofus, this person who can't manage anything. And by the way, her approval rating reflects the fact that she is this incompetent. And I also want to point out, in addition to all of these things, is that this woman is paying New York State taxpayer dollars in order to hire people, in order to guard and protect illegal migrants, in order to provide services for illegal migrants, rather than trying to train the next generation of corrections officers in order to fill this void. It's insane. It's ridiculous. This is the nonsense that we see time and time again from Democratic governance, and I'm sick of it. So yeah, corrections officers, I'm right there with you. Now that I'm aware of your issue, which by the way, a lot of it is contained to local news reporting in upstate New York, in places like Albany and Buffalo, but now that I'm aware, I'm going to be following this story. I'm going to be advocating for you, because these people are the ones that do the work that none of us want to do. They engage with the people that we find so repugnant, so repulsive, we quite literally remove them from our society, and they deserve our respect. They deserve our care, and they deserve better than to be forced to work 24-hour shifts and not even get to see their own kids, their own family, because their work, their help in incapacitating criminals helps all of us and protects all of our families. Now look, that's all I really have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. As per usual, if you like this video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about corrections workers on strike. Till next time.